So, Stoke. But seriously, what can we expect from Stoke this season?
Yeah, it's a slightly tricky one to gauge. I think we're probably going to be seeing something fairly similar to what we saw last time, mostly on the basis that the squad is not too dramatically changed from last time. There's been a bit of a wages cull. They've got rid of Jonathan Woodgate and Salif Diao and Fuller, a couple of others, just to ease the load on the wage bill. But we haven't seen particularly significant additions. They've got Jamie Ness coming in, who seems like a player who fits the classic Stoke mould. You know, he's a physical player. He knows how to win tackles in the middle of the park, and he's going to give something to them. I think he's certainly someone who can come in and contribute. But it's quite a marked change from last summer, when last summer it was more of an, I was going to say an Arab revolution, but I'd be overdoing it. But you know, you were looking at a European campaign, and there was significant money spent on players like Peter Crouch and Wilson Palacios. This has been a much more modest summer for Stoke, and I think it's going to be much more a case of consolidating where they are than looking for huge change on where they were last season.
Some of the players who have moved on, I mean, is there a concern losing someone like a maverick like Ricardo Fuller, that they might miss some of what he has to offer?
They've got a maverick like Peter Crouch scoring ridiculous goals every now and then for them. So it's I don't know. I think obviously in a team that's built first and foremost to protect itself, having someone who can create that moment out of nothing when you're not necessarily prizing possession, when you're not necessarily saying that we're going to be constantly probing and looking for opportunities. If you've got one player who can do something a little bit out of the ordinary, it's always a boost. But I don't think that this team is short of ways to get to the goal.
Stoke have a fairly tricky start. They've got Arsenal, Chelsea, both Manchester teams, and Liverpool in their opening set of fixtures. Is that something that that they need not worry about because they're fairly settled in the Premier League, or do you think they'll be a bit concerned?
I think there's obviously concern. Starting any season badly is never a good position to be in, and when you play a bunch of teams like that, then yes, you expect to lose some games. But it's worth mentioning that while sometimes the Stoke at home thing is overplayed, because we have to have this conversation whenever we're talking about foreign players of whether they're going to fancy it on a wet Tuesday night in Stoke. It is also true that they don't lose a lot of games at home, and a couple of those games are at home. Arsenal, who they drew with at home last season, is at home again in that early run. Manchester City, I believe, is at home, and they also drew with Man City at home. So these aren't games that they're not used to. These aren't games that... We're not talking about a team that's just come up. We're talking about a team that knows about playing these sorts of opposition and is capable of handling that. So I wouldn't be overly worried for Stoke because of that, no.